What's up, everybody, and welcome to this edition of The Go Route. We are back. It's Derek Tate and Jay Pfeiffer. Every episode is brought to you by the Original Hooters. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, Jay, as it's been a while since we've been on the mic, but how are things going over there in the Shy? I miss your face.
I know. Well, I miss seeing you too, buddy. So it's definitely good to be back on the mic with you again. Everything is okay here in Chi-Town. Obviously, with what things being how they are, in the climate in this country and around the world, actually, we're okay. Things are, I think, coming down a little bit, and we'll get into that a little later on in the show. But things are okay. We're good. It's transitioning from winter straight to summer here. No spring as usual in Chicago, so we're okay. We're good. How are you?
Yeah, we've kind of leapfrogged spring as well. I mean, like I was at the beach yesterday. If I'm a little tan, I'm a little sweaty right now. My humble apologies, but I mean, it's like I'm hot now. And I like it. Okay, I'll take hot over cold any damn day of the week.
You are always hot, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Speaking of red hot, we're going to go ahead and have a red hot episode for you here for the Go Route, brought to you by Fantasy Focus in the Original Hooters. But we're going to talk about some of the rule changes that were discussed, but not potentially passed forward. We're going to talk about how COVID-19, how is that's going to affect the upcoming 2020 NFL season. But the first thing that we want to talk about here is because, like you said, there is a lot going on in the world right now, particularly here in the United States. And really, this is a movement as far as Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, as far as that's gone across the world and into Europe and stuff of that nature. George Floyd was tragically murdered, in my opinion, while in the custody of the Minneapolis police. And Derek Chauvin, former officer of Minneapolis police, has been charged with second-degree murder and a form of manslaughter for placing his knee on the neck of George Floyd for over 8 minutes until he was unconscious and subsequently ended up passing away tragically. And now protests have popped up across the country. And I mean, your city of Chicago, Minneapolis, Atlanta, I mean, really across the nation. There was even one here in Cadillac, Michigan, small town in northern Michigan. There was a protest just yesterday on Saturday. So this is something that has needed to be addressed for a very, very long time, is systemic racism and social injustice in the United States of America. And my experience as a white man in the United States and what constitutes freedom has been different and looks different and sounds different than your experience here in the United States of America. So I want to go ahead. Drew Brees has came out and again made a comment that seems tone deaf. In a lot of ways in regards to Colin Kaepernick's decision to take a knee and peacefully protest police brutality back in the 2016 season. And of course, once that season concluded, he hasn't had a job in the National Football League since. And now all of a sudden we see Commissioner Roger Goodell condemning racism and systematic oppression of Black people. And he even said, quote, "admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier." So there is a lot to unpack, but I want to go ahead and give you the floor and kind of talk about the NFL's reaction to the death of George Floyd and so on and so forth.
Well, I'll try to be as concise as I can about all of this, and hopefully not too long-winded, but this is unfortunately something that has been happening and has once again happened in this country for hundreds of years, thousands of years. I mean, if you really want to go back in the history books, and unfortunately, this COVID-19 virus has put a powder keg of emotions in people. I think it's the perfect storm, as you will, to use an old cliche. People are pent up emotionally and physically. And unfortunately, when this happened, with the combination of that, people having an underlying angst about them, you're starting to see a lot more participation in protests, and again, not just across the country, across the world. Unfortunately, I don't think these particular actions will have the change that people seek. It's not just about the words anymore. It's has to be about the action and how we react to it. Words are nice. Words are great. You know, we use words for a living, Derek, and we have the ability, because most people don't, to articulate our feelings in a way that people understand, right? But again, most people, overwhelming majority, sadly, don't have that ability. And you see the reactions of people acting out violently and acting out in protest. And it's not all violent. And I'm not saying that, you know, what people are doing as far as the violent actions is right, because it's not. Looting and destroying property, that's never really going to solve anything. But people are wholeheartedly tired of what's has been going on in this country. And one difference that I have noticed, and we need more of this, is to see white people engaged in these discussions and actions as well. And again, that is encouraging, but it's going to take a lot more than that. And we can have our debates about that, what shall be done, what could be done.
Right.
I don't necessarily have an answer for that. I have ideas. I have things that I see, as being possibilities, but we can all hope and dream for what we want individually, right? So there has to be a collective focus on achieving this goal. And again, that is something that is probably a long ways away. But getting to Drew Brees specifically, I'm not gonna lie and say I lost a lot of cool points for that man. His comments are, I don't want to say, there's deep rootedness to it, but there is that tone deaf part that you mentioned about it that is glaring and that is telling in a lot of ways, and what he's saying and what he's not saying more specifically. And the fact that he doubled down on some of those comments, I think it was like the next day or the day after that. It just shows, his overwhelming ignorance to everything that this movement and that the message that Black people are trying to say is getting out there. So, he can apologize all he wants, but I'm just incredibly saddened that he still honestly doesn't get it. And again, that's probably a deep-rooted, ingrained thing, and I don't want to wholeheartedly bash him for it, but right. It's time for people to start looking in the mirror and taking accountability for what they say and what they do. And unfortunately, Drew Brees, I think, still needs to do that a lot.
So there's a lot to unpack, and I appreciate you being willing to talk about this subject, because it's not an easy one to talk about. We're talking about another death that could have been avoided. Should have been avoided. Should have never taken place in the first place. And if there wasn't a video camera, do you think Derek Chauvin loses his job? Do you think he's being charged with murder? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And again, that's what sparked the outrage, in the first place was the video, because I applaud it. I really do, because these things go unseen, and they have been unseen for so long. And that's what we've been trying to say, is we're trying to bring light to this way that we've been treated, and I say we, and because I've experienced it in my lifetime. I certainly haven't experienced it to the level that some people have, but I am not exclusive from it. And again, it is a fundamental way that needs to be changed in the way that we are seen and treated. And it's unfortunate that it takes an actual video for things to start moving. It's very unfortunate. It's crap. It's BS.
You think we'd be better as a fucking society? Excuse my language. No, you would think we would be better as a society when it's 2020. I mean, and again, I don't want to say that I feel underqualified, because at its core, this is a fucking human rights thing. I mean, like, I don't care what color you are, whether you're white, you're black, you're brown, you're orange, you're blue.
Yep.
Like you want to expect and have hopes that we could treat each other equally, but equal and land of the free, that hasn't meant the same. I mean, just even my small glimpses of when I see someone else unprovoked treat a black man or Spanish man differently than how they treat me.
Mm-hmm.
I just see that for that one small glimpse. And I see it in a video that someone captures. Like, I don't live it every day. So I can't, I can't fully understand. So all I'm here to say, man, is I'm here to listen and learn and be open to whatever it is, suggestions and changes in protocol and procedure for police officers. And they're not all police officers are fucking bad, man.
No, they're not. We're not saying that either. Right.
And I apologize for throwing, explicatives out there as many times as I am, but it hurts me to my soul, man, just to see stuff like this and to feel powerless. And if I feel freaking powerless, then that's
right. Well, this we're using part of that power right now, Derek. So I'll challenge the fact that you are powerless to that. Again, we have the ability to get our message out there and to say how we feel and to hopefully inspire a change of heart, maybe in somebody. And again, these conversations are awesome, and we need more people like you, to spread at least these sort of basic type of messages. And I'm not saying basic to discount what you're saying. I'm just saying these are the base conversations that need to be held. There needs to be again a fundamental understanding of what makes different people tick, and what drives our emotions, what fuels us. And if we can somehow even get the basis of understanding of that, then we can move forward. But unfortunately, it's an overwhelming majority that honestly are opposed to that, and again, we have to change that mentality. And I think, again, these is sort of where it starts.
Right. So I'll go ahead and you say this is where it starts, but didn't it sort of start, or at least Colin Kaepernick tried to start the conversation by peacefully protesting and taking a knee during the national anthem during the 2016 season, which you can go ahead and say that he was pretty much ousted.
Blackballed, yeah. Call it for what it was, yeah.
100%. Blackballed from the National Football League because of his decision to bring attention to police brutality and systemic racism in the United States. And now we see Roger Goodell. I want to get your thoughts. Is like, doesn't it feel freaking empty that Goodell is saying shit like this now?
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does, because it could have been said, and then not just going back to Kaepernick, but going back, back. We're talking about decades of operations here, and this. Obviously we're getting to this bogus ass amendment to the Rooney Rule that we're talking about. At least I think that's where you were going, right?
I mean, it's part of it. Yeah, exactly.
so this amendment to this Rooney Rule is basically incentivizing teams for hiring minority coaches, and
is that a joke?
It's a spit in the face, is what it is,
right?
And it's making a mockery of the system that should have been in place even before. Why make this sort of, again, post-mortem type of amendment, whatever you want to call it, extension to the rule, when it should have been thoroughly and brutally enforced in the first place, because that's what it was intended to do. So to me, I mean, it's empty, it's hollow, it's past the point, and again, he can say that they're late on these actions. Duh. We know this. This is what has been screamed in your ear for his entire tenure, basically. And again, it's I don't know what goes forward from here, but I mean, that just this little part of it is just completely bogus. And hopefully there's I would much prefer teams to rather overstep this just to completely disregard it in the first place, because it's not even a legitimate rule. It really isn't, because it hasn't been.
Well, the Rooney Rule, I mean, when you're incentivizing NFL teams to hire a black GM or a black head coach, I mean, you're trying to entice, if there is systemic racism, which I believe there is in the National Football League at the higher levels, whether it be the owners or other decision makers. So you're trying to incentivize them to hire a black candidate when that defeats the whole, like, why are you trying to tell them, hey, we'll give you something as long as you hire a black coach or a black GM?
It's bribery. It's bribery.
Right.
It's bribery.
How is that fixing the problem?
It's not. It's actually making it a whole hell of a lot worse.
It made me shake my head.
I mean, the contradictions are abound. I mean, again, it's blatant, and it's not even a what do they call it? A mea culpa. It's not even a. It's not even that. It's here. We're gonna try to put a small Band-Aid on this leaky faucet, and hopefully that'll satiate some of the naysayers out there. And again, it actually heightens the problem at its highest level.
But didn't this get approved by like the Players Association? Didn't there other governing bodies that like approved and voted yes in form of this?
That is also why I'm deeply disturbed about it, because I am not sure that there was enough research or discussion or questions about it, because you're right, it has to be agreed to on both sides by the players union. So that is what really saddens me about it. And maybe there needs to be taken a deep look, investigation, although it probably won't happen, at what happened there, because again, this was a big dropping of the ball on both sides.
There's been a lot of, society and the system here in the United States has dropped the ball as far as its justice system, as far as its police system, has dropped the ball in many ways of holding people accountable for systemic racism and social injustice. Again, I have plenty of friends that are cops. I have black friends that are cops, and they're great human beings. It's not all cops. It's just the system as a whole has failed for centuries. So why are we just now having this conversation? It's, in one way, I'm glad we're having these conversations, because finally we're freaking having them. But
again, there needs to be more action done. Right. And again, I'm not probably qualified to say what actions need to be taken. I'm sure I know what I would like to see start to see happening. But I mean, again, that could be conceived as counterproductive as well. But it's got to stop. It's got to stop, because these things keep happening, and they keep popping up. And hopefully more of us start to flood the airwaves, the streets. I mean, the meetings, the houses. There needs to be wholesale changes, again, and it starts from me and you, and spreading it out to those who we know and love, Right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and it's weird, because you see now, even with the reveal of Jake Fromm, with a text message that he sent back in, I think it was 2019, something to the lines of, I'm paraphrasing here, but only elite white people should be able to purchase guns. Yeah. Like, where does that come from? I mean,
exactly. And again, that's part of the deep part. It's deep rooted. It's ingrained, and most of white people don't realize they're doing it, and which is also a shame. So, I don't know exactly how you sort of eradicate that mindset that's been, generationally almost, again, imprinted in DNA.
Right.
But there's a start. Again, when there's a cross conversation between me and you, hopefully you can, and I expect that you will, have these conversations with your other white friends, and sort of get them to, again, just sort of step out of their perspective, and maybe for once try to see it differently. Hopefully, stuff can start to turn the tide.
We can learn a hell of a lot if we just listen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to know everything. We don't need to have the answers to everything, but just listening is, I think, the starting point. And then transition listening to action, hopefully. I'm certainly going to do my part, and I appreciate you again talking about, some things that are not easy to talk about, but they need to happen. We need to have these discussions.
Yep, absolutely. And I applaud you, my friend. You know how I feel about you, man. I won't get all mushy here on the go route.
Oh, I know. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry, baby. I mean,
You're the best, buddy. You're the best.
Put the Bucks helmet on to make sure I cover up the tears. But in all seriousness, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the other rule changes. I mean, there's been a lot since we've last recorded the go route. Life gets in the way. I mean, COVID-19 has had its effect on all sports across the United States, across the globe. I mean, hell, they delayed the Summer Olympics until 2021, if that tells you anything as far as the impact that the coronavirus has had on sporting world across the globe. But as far as the NFL, really, the National Football League has to feel that they made out like bandits as far as the impact for COVID-19, because they just finished the Super Bowl right when we were having our first confirmed cases of coronavirus here in the United States. So I go ahead and give me, what are your thoughts of the NFL not having games, but with no fans in the stands and potentially broadcasters, calling the game remotely? I mean, how is this NFL season going to look amidst a global health pandemic?
Well, I mean, I would anticipate it's going to look vastly different, and the NFL has been impacted by some of those changes. Obviously, there had to be a virtual draft, pretty much, and there was a glitch there right at the top of the draft, but everything is being, sort of done from home, especially with these social distancing rules in place. And it's the timing is everything, as you mentioned, about them being done, with the Super Bowl just getting done, and of course right into March is when everything sort of started to hit.
Right.
And the NFL, I think, will look very different, not just for this next season, the upcoming season, but possibly for the future. I think not to use this grand phrase, but it's been used a lot, but the world has sort of shifted and how we do a lot of things and how we operate and how sports operate, and it'll look different. I think there'll probably be a little to no fan base in most of these stadiums, and there'll probably be a very limited number of, obviously accompanying broadcast staff and player personnel and all of that sort of stuff. I think you'll probably see a lot more gloves and masks worn on the sidelines. It's going to be strange. It's probably going to be a bit of a shock to the system, but I think the distancing part, I think, is probably the most tough is thing to get over, especially for coaches, players, and staff. I think that sort of close camaraderie is what teams, has been a positive for teams in the past, being able to bond and have that sort of brotherhood, type of deal going on. And that'll be totally different because, again, we're doing a lot of these things virtually now instead of one-on-one and face-to-face. So I think you're going to see a lot of big, small, and significant changes throughout the NFL, and not just throughout the NFL, but in sports in general.
So it's hard to picture. I mean, and I know we're focusing on the NFL here on the go route, but I mean, it's hard to imagine Tuscaloosa, the University of Alabama, with no fans in the stands.
Yeah, not in Bryant-Denny. I mean, it's 100,000 plus. I mean, and the other thing about that is, I believe, I don't know how you feel about this, but when you talk about Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and in these college stadiums, they feed off of that fan base. That fan base matters maybe more in college than it does in the NFL. It does in the NFL as well, but more so in college. Do these
traditional
stadiums matter? Bryant-Denny. You talk about Death Valley and LSU and in Clemson as well. These top-notch programs where if you go there and you're on the road, you're an opposing team, you're probably not going to win because it matters that much, that environment that you have to play in. So it's going to be weird, and I think it could impact the games in a big way. What do you think about that?
It will impact the games. I don't know. Deshaun Jackson brought this up, though. if they're not going to have fans in the stands, wouldn't you want to see some other production? Because you're going to be able to hear a lot of stuff that's going on the football field that previously you would not be able to, strictly because of crowd noise,
right?
Background noise, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, would it be interesting to have maybe the players mic'd up? Hell yeah. I mean, I'm a football junkie. I want to be able to hear every little call and then go back and watch it and then try to decipher what those calls are, just because that's how I work. But, but yeah, I mean, could it be different? I mean, could home games be basically relegated to, I'm not going to say no advantage whatsoever.
Right.
But, I mean, think about, like you said, Bryant-Denny Stadium or Ben Hill Griffin Stadium there in Gainesville, Florida for the University of Florida Gators, or any other, significant college football advantage at home. You don't have that crowd noise, and a lot of the communication between the quarterback and the head coach or the offensive coordinator is hand signals, signs from the sideline or through the headset. You're going to be able to hear all that pretty damn clear, almost like you're having a telephone conversation.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we're talking about you're talking about the Big House in Michigan. We're talking about the Shoe in Ohio State. These are legit, city-sized stadiums, 100,000 plus people.
The Big House.
It matters, man. And again, I think it'll be able to sort of be played through, but those communication issues that become an issue throughout the game, and when you're the opposing player and you feel that ground shake literally at your feet and fingertips because the place is rocking, literally shaking because of the noise and the crowds. It's going to be different, but I think it'll be something that'll get used to. But again, I'm more excited maybe to see, like you mentioned, like Deshaun Jackson, having these players mic'd up, some of the production values that could be thrown about idea wise. I don't know if you want to have everybody mic'd up now. I mean, no,
definitely not.
Children do watch the sport, unfortunately. So you don't want to hear everything, but I think how the NFL and some of these broadcast companies adjust to that will be very interesting to see.
I would have loved to have seen someone like Marshawn Lynch get mic'd up.
Oh yeah.
Marshawn would tops my list.
Absolutely, agreed.
But so I mean, as one thing is we're talking about communication. Some of the folks joining in live, Kyle Senra, thank you for joining us. Saying this is a subject worth expressing explicatives. The conversation that we had earlier, 100% agree, but go ahead and thank you for joining us. And then Leanne of ESPN down there in Panama City, the Coach's Daughter Show. Thank you for joining us. It's all about listening and acceptance and no judgment. So, I mean, certainly this is a conversation that, again, we're having here on the Go Route, but we wanted to talk about, other changes potentially. There was a 4th and 15 rule change that was brought up as an alternate to the onside kick. Now, for the last 2 seasons, the onside kick, because they changed the rules to limit, full speed collisions, obviously with concussion protocols and a lot of the concussion, lawsuits, when it's costing Roger Goodell and the rest of the NFL owners money, then, you perk up your ears and you start having some changes. But 4th and 15, going for it on your own 25-yard line, as opposed to going and attempting an onside kick to try to steal a possession away, it was tabled until next year. So it's not been completely rejected, but it's not going to happen in 2020. But I want to hear your thoughts. Does it feel a little, I don't know, Bush League? Does it feel a little bit beneath the NFL? If anything, they should change their overtime format, not an onside kick.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't. And I agree with you. I think they should change the overtime format first of all, and instead of this. I don't see how this is actually really exciting, because I mean, as a knee-jerk reaction, I'm thinking the overwhelming majority is probably it's not going to be gained. It's not going to be gained, and you immediately give the momentum and the field position over to the opposing team. So I'm not sure what it's trying to avoid by having this rule in. I mean, obviously the onside kicks and all of that. I get it. Yeah. I mean, I get it, but it seems, it seems a little soft.
Soft, cheap, cotton candy type shit. This is little league stuff, dude. I mean, it's like something you would make up in a board game or something like that. I mean, it's
and I am all about safety. Okay, I'm not. I'm all for everybody living healthy lives, especially when you play something already that's inherently violent as football. But it's some stuff that needs to be messed with. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So, I mean, personally, I would have loved to have seen potentially them adopt the college football playoff format, because I think the college football playoff format is fantastic. I think it's the best as
Agreed.
far as football goes. But, you know, at 4th and 15, I mean, would it be yeah, it would be exciting, but it would kind of be like, I mean, you can make anything exciting. It would be exciting if you put 22 defenders on the football field against 11. That doesn't mean it's a good rule change. It would be exciting to watch, but I'm not for it. It was.
I'm not for it at all. It's just, again,
No.
No, absolutely not. Get off my lawn. No, seriously. Again, I think it cheapens it just a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Sen, we're jumping in saying, you know, my idea is 4th and 10 from your own 1 yard. I mean, essentially the same damn thing. You're sure the other team is in scoring position. But as far as, you know, now we have collected all of the information as far as post NFL draft.
Yeah.
We now have Tom Brady on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Rob Gronkowski on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've seen all of the dominoes fall, so to say, with maybe 1 or 2 moves moving forward. If an injury happens at the quarterback position, maybe Cam Newton or something like that joins a team somewhere during the season. But as of right now, the landscape seems to be set. Yeah. So I'll ask you, who do you think were the winners and losers of this offseason, just off the top of your head?
Yeah, sure. Well, listen, I mean, let's talk about individuals first, because again, I think, and you know, whether he has sustained success in Carolina remains to be seen. But I think just the story of Teddy Bridgewater, at least for me personally, is something that I am really just excited to see for the next upcoming season, because we talked about this. You know, I mean, when you have that non-contact injury, you know, I've actually talked about this with my wife a little bit, but it's a career killer. And for lack of a better phrase, this guy's knee blew up. And, you know, it wasn't just his career. It was for a while there, it was life-threatening, you know, and because, you know, they're obviously, I don't want to get medical, and I'm not a doctor, but there are veins, there are arteries in the leg that were threatened with this injury. So
similar to like Alex Smith.
Yeah, exactly. So for him to make the comeback that he did, perform the way that he did in the aforementioned Drew Brees' absence this past season, parlay that into a long-term contract with the Carolina Panthers as their starting QB, as they move on from Cam Newton. Again, I think it's for me, it's a testament to him being a competitor, being just the resilient guy that he is.
Right.
And again, I can't predict if he's going to have success in Carolina. I don't know. They have a decent squad down there, especially offensively. But you know, the future is just that. It remains to be seen. So
tough division.
Yeah. Again, and that's personally for me. I think, you know, he won the offseason. But let's get to your Tampa Bay Bucks. Obviously, that's sort of the big highlight and elephant in the room, Mr. Derek. Yeah, there it is.
I can do it.
There's that Tampa Bay helmet right there. Listen, again, tough division. You just said this. We both agree. But when you get, you know, for all argue intents and purposes, the GOAT at the quarterback position in Tom Brady, it's an upgrade, you know, and I think it's going to parlay that, especially to a playoff appearance. I don't know if they're going to win the division or grab a wild card spot or not. We can get into that a little bit, you know, on another show. But it's an upgrade for that team offensively, and to add Rob Gronkowski to the fold, because I didn't think he was done for a long shot, and I'm not sure if I've actually gotten your personal opinion on Gronkowski coming out of retirement yet, especially on this particular podcast. But it's Tom Brady's trusted target, man. I mean, listen, he is he's the definition of the safety valve. Okay, so you know, I don't know how much he's got left in the tank. I don't know how productive he's going to be, but just having him there is, you know, just sort of entrenches that trust.
Right.
That Tom Brady's going to have with the offense. So, I mean, it's for me, it's personally, for individually, it's Teddy Bridgewater. And again, the big elephant in the room is the Tampa Bay Bucks. You're a Tampa Bay Bucks, Derek. And there's a lot more. I mean, we can unpeel it, but
of course.
Yeah, I want to give you, you know, a few minutes to talk about your big winners.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and just my initial reactions. I mean, Rob Gronkowski, look, as great as he is, we also saw another player take a year off and then come back at 31 years old, and that was Marshawn Lynch.
Yep.
I mean, still productive, but not what we remember, not in his prime. Gronk lost a lot of weight. He's got to get back into football shape, but the best way to do that is you got Tom Brady under center. You got two other tight ends that are very capable. So, I mean, if you want to be specific and just use them in certain packages, you definitely can. I mean, there's going to be a ton of 12 personnel, two tight ends, one running back, and Rojo with the two wide receivers outside, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. So
just cut you off really quick. I believe this move is, again, they have to get there, but this move isn't about the regular season. This is about the postseason.
Oh, you're 100% correct.
Because again, we know how valuable the Gronk is when it's postseason, when it's a third down time. Again, he's going to be there for Tom Brady when he needs him the most. So this move, again, it's not for a regular season. It's for, a hopeful postseason run.
I mean, Gronkowski is effectively a 6'6" Hall of Fame teddy bear for Tom Brady. I mean, just that safety blanket person that he knows he can depend on. I mean, he could probably roll out of bed right now, come off the street, lose a ton of weight, and he's still a hell of a red zone threat, man. I mean, Gronk is 100% a welcome addition. And I mean, you give up the 4th round pick for a guy that's been retired for a year. So in one ways, it looks like Bill Belichick, pulls the strings a little bit and gets something out of a player that really doesn't deserve a 4th round pick as far as on paper, but still the Buccaneers pushing their chips to the center. And now they have like 3 starting caliber tight ends on one roster. So they're definitely teed up for this year. But if you're asking me, a team that really jumps out as far as some moves they made in the offseason to help their position, it's the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, you talk about David Johnson, who was benched, essentially freaking benched at the end of the year. Kenyon Drake played fantastic. You knew that they probably wanted to move forward with him anyway. And you get out of a kind of a questionable contract to David Johnson, who hasn't been that productive since 2016. And in return, all it cost was David Johnson and a 2nd round pick for DeAndre Hopkins. We already kind of broke down that trade, but they also added Isaiah Simmons in the NFL draft, which they were atrocious at guarding opposing defensive tight ends. And all of a sudden, now you have one of the best hybrid defensive weapons in the National Football League on day number 1. I just think that even though that's a tough division with Russell Wilson, San Francisco 49ers, and even the LA Rams, I just think that Kyler Murray showed me enough on a pretty bad football team. And now you add DeAndre Hopkins? I like what they did this offseason for the Arizona Cardinals. I'm very interested to see how they look heading into next year.
So I think we can both agree on this statement that the Arizona Cardinals are probably going to score a ton of points. They're probably going to be top 5, maybe even top 3, somewhere, at least in my opinion, somewhere around total points scored. Big question for me: can they defend? Although they addressed it, they addressed it in the draft, but can they defend and can they protect? Right, enough. Can they protect Kyler Murray enough? Because those are going to be keys. But they are going to put up some points. And we talked about the DeAndre Hopkins trade to Arizona. I mean, it's for Arizona. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, it's cha-ching, jackpot. I mean, if we had a money graphic streaming across the screen right now, we'd have it.
I mean, play fantasy football. That's like an instant accept. You think that somebody made that offer by mistake?
Yes, exactly. You're hoping they did anyway, which is exactly. They got a sucker in Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans. Let's not focus on that for this particular moment.
Yeah,
because that'll send me off on a whole nother tangent. But I mean, big time point score by the Arizona Cardinals. But can they defend? Also in a tough division.
So we also kind of sit down here and Kyle actually agreeing with you, even as a Packers fan, happy to see former Viking Bridgewater get back. Not only get back on the field, play well, but get that payday. Yeah. I mean, which, every player is looking for that one big payday at the end of their rookie contract, which Bridgewater essentially lost.
Yes.
Almost in addition to his entire NFL career,
right?
When he suffered that injury. So 100% agree with you there, Kyle. But that'll probably do it here for this episode. I know one final news and note. Is there anything as far as this upcoming NFL preseason, as far as you're looking towards, outside of the COVID-19, madness?
Yeah, well, again, we've got to get back to some normalcy as far as football operations go.
Right.
And there's still a lot of up in the air as far as how those things are going to progress. But you're starting to see, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, teams are doing virtual meetings. They're having virtual quarterback sessions.
Right.
When particularly here in Chicago to bring it on home. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that, but I mean, I think it's part of what my point was earlier, right? I think this may be not just the present for the NFL, but the future. You may start to see a lot of things stick as far as virtually, moving forward. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how productions are being produced, how they're going to be presented to the public, how teams will practice, how they communicate on those practice days, on off days. What will happen operations wise with the NFL? Again, I think is the big thing for me. But there will be a season, hopefully. I don't think there'll be a delay. I don't, I didn't get your opinion on that. You don't think there'll be a delay either, do you?
I don't think so. I mean, they have enough time.
Yeah.
It seems like the NBA, NHL, most sports seem to be having something set up to just resume or flat out start their season. The NFL, lucked out by the fact that they've had so much time, an entire offseason to prep and make changes.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think we're both looking forward to it happening right on time. All the new bright faces, the new faces in new places that are coming up. We just talked about DeAndre Hopkins and Teddy Bridgewater. We'll get into more stories, of course, in the weeks to come here. Whenever we're able to bring you an episode here on the Go Route, hopefully we can get a little more consistent, especially on my part. I totally blame myself. So.
Don't blame yourself. It's me too, my man. It's me too. We're just busy. Life happens.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, again, how the NFL will look moving forward, I think, is just sort of the anticipatory part for me personally.
Hopefully, the right type of changes are going to be made in the National Football League, but not just the National Football League, but across the nation as well, as we are all kind of on our heels as far as the COVID-19 coronavirus that has had impacts on our lives, but also the tragic death of George Floyd and systemic racism and social injustice, having these conversations as we did today here on the Go Route. So anybody that was joining us live or listening to our podcast after the fact, we really hope that you engage in these conversations as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let you sign us off because it's been a hell of an episode of the Go Route. Again, if you have not yet done so, go ahead and subscribe or just go ahead and shoot us a like, drop us a review. We really appreciate any and all the support as we break down the upcoming NFL season here on the Go Route, brought to you by the Original Hooters. Let us go, Jay.
Yeah, before I do, I just want to say once again, I applaud you, man. I love you, brother. You know how I feel about you. We talked about this off mic, and it's there, and we need more people like you out here. You're one of the good ones. So, sending my love to you, man, and we'll be back on the mic here real soon. So, to send you guys out there home, be nice to each other, be kind to each other in the best ways that you possibly can. We need to do that now more than ever. This is J5 saying, live your best life.